This is Rob Tebbutt for Boxing Social. Delighted to be joined here today at Stonebridge Boxing Club with Jimmy Mack Jr. Hi, Jimmy.
I'm very well, Rob. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Very well. Been a while since we've done an interview together.
It has, mate. I think it was it Belotti? Was it the last one? Was Belotti?
I don't think we spoke then. I think the last time I interviewed you...
Was it Nando's? Do you remember it was in Nando's? That was... God, that was ages ago. It was about a year
That
ago.
was February the 2nd, or the day before a Coley Chamberlain at the O2.
Yeah, that's right. It's a year ago. It's been a while, mate.
What have you been up to?
Not a lot, really, mate. Just been working. Same old, you know how it is. Just doing bits and pieces with James. Just getting him ready for the 23rd. So, yeah, all good.
Now, speaking of the devil, he's just behind you. I've just seen him working out and hitting some pads and stuff. Looks in good shape. Looks very lean. How's he been in preparation for the fight?
Yeah, really good. He's been hitting all the targets that he set out to achieve, and I can't wait for the 23rd because you've heard him say it before. He has been hindered badly by injuries especially over the last couple of years, and obviously with the loss to Truax with his belt, which was down to his injury, and winning it back, he still hasn't shown everyone convincingly that he's back to his best. And all I can say is, if you just look at his shape, you can see a massive difference in him. And all I can say is that it's like night and day to the two Truax fights. And I think he's going to come back and show glimpses of his best on the 23rd of Feb.
Do you think any of it is to do with potentially motivation? I mean, for the first Truax fight, I think Truax was 100-1 or something ridiculous to win the fight, and I think James, by his own admission, didn't quite take him as seriously as he felt he should have. Has there been kind of a noticeable difference in this fight? It's obviously a very heavily hyped fight. It's a bit of bad blood between him and Eubank Jr. I think motivation's a key factor here.
Do you know what? I think you've hit the nail on the head, Rob. 100-1 on in a two-horse race is mental odds. And you're right, in the Truax fight, it was like, let me just deal with this guy and then we'll just move on. And it was just before Christmas. It was like, let me just get paid before Christmas and get a defence of my belt, and just refused to give his belt up because of the shoulder, the amount of time that it would have been with the IBF, they was going to just strip the belt anyway. But he wasn't motivated for the fight. But it's hard, you've got to be professional, you've got to try and do your job, but you just can't put that in you sometimes. But for this one, for the Eubank one, he hasn't needed no motivation because of the hype, because of the bad blood, because it's a derby. You ain't had to give him no motivation. It's all there, like within him, and that's pushed him on and made him train really hard. And he's in brilliant shape. Yeah, wicked shape.
It's been a while that since we've seen this kind of version of James. Is over there with Ron McIntosh. We've seen this version of James, kind of the outspoken, kind of old version of James, really. Has that kind of been the same around the gym? Has he been the kind of the loud, brash James DeGale that we've seen on all the ITV preview stuff?
Yeah, I mean, James is James. He's a personality. You can hear him there. Look, he's very loud. He's very bubbly, and people get the wrong side of the stick with James sometimes. Sometimes people look at him and they go, "Oh, I don't like him, and he flash and he horrible," but they don't know the real James. When you sit down with a real James and have a cup of tea and just chill out, you go, he's actually a really, really nice person. But it's part of the build-up. Obviously, there's no secret that him and Eubank don't get along. And when James isn't a fan of someone, sometimes he gets a little bit hyped and he gets drawn in and this, that, and the other. But you've seen glimpses of him like that in this build-up. But it's been a lot more controlled to what it was, say, for example, when he boxed George Groves. I mean, that was going back 7 years now. So obviously he's matured and got older, and he's like a seasoned pro now. Like, he's been in so many big fights, so he sort of knows what it takes to, be in these fights, sell the fights. And and of course, listen, who wants to just hear two people just go, it's going to be a great fight and blah, blah, blah. You want to see that little bit of needle, that little bit of spite between them. And you've got plenty of that in this fight.
You mentioned George Groves, recently retired George Groves. Even still, after all this time, even now George has retired, there's still the friction between them. There's still back and forward in the press. One comment that George made that I know got under James's skin was about kind of denying him a payday and deflating him in the build-up to the Eubank fight. Was there any sense of that when the announcement was made from George Groves? Has it affected James at all?
Do you know what? I actually pulled up outside this gym and my phone was all going off. People was going, George Groves has retired. And I was like, oh, right, blimey. So we come in and said to James, you seen like George Groves? He was like, yeah, I just see that like, and that was it. He literally just carried on wrapping his hands up, and James is under the illusion that like he's at a stage of his career where you've got to take each fight as it comes. And talking about George Groves, he's not interested in George Groves. He's interested in Chris Eubank Jr. right now. So to take your eye off the ball and think about, George is retired, and that was a big fight for the British public, and he ain't even really mentioned it, if I'm honest. And all he's talking about is beating Eubank Jr. on the 23rd of Feb. But fair play to George. He's had a brilliant career. He's boxed everyone. Like he's boxed obviously James. He's had the 2 Froch fights, Badou Jack. He's set out what he's achieved to do, which was to win his world title. So he's ticked all the boxes in his mind. Like he's achieved everything he's wanted to achieve. I'm sure financially he's done very well as well. And I know when he boxed Edward Gutnick, who's still not well now, I don't know whether that's like been in George's head a little bit, where he knows that this is a very dangerous sport. I know he's recently like had a young family as well, so maybe he just thinks, you know what, like, let me just get out of here, man. Like, I've had a hard career, I've been around a long time. Obviously he's had his own injuries as well. So, fair play to him, good luck. He's been a good character over the years, and he's built the fights up, and he's been good for boxing,
That's very well said. Where does Chris Eubank Jr. rank on James DeGale's most difficult opponents list? I think this was something that was mentioned at the initial press conference. James was James and laughed and joked and carried on. How much of that was kidology or how much he actually meant, I'm not sure. Where do you rank Chris Eubank Jr. when you're comparing him to your Badou Jacks, your Andre Durrells and so on and such forth?
Eubank is in his mind is one of his biggest assets, because he believes in himself massively. So from a mind point of view and a mental point of view, you'd put him on par like with them sort of boys that, listen, they're all world-class fighters. Eubank Jr. believes he's a world-class fighter. So from that point of view, you'd put him, from a mental point of view, on the same sort of level. But from an ability point of view, I wouldn't put him on the same level. He's not big enough. He's not beat any names on his record where you go, DeGale wouldn't beat him. And the 2 fights that he's been stepped up to the top boys, with Billy Joe and George Groves, he's come unstuck in. So he comes under a lot of stick. Eubank, he comes under a lot of criticism, and it don't seem to affect him. Like he's, I've seen a few things of him in the build-up. He's super confident, and like he always has been. And I don't expect him to change in the lead up to this one. But he's a tough boy, and he'll be there. Listen, he gives everyone problems because he is tough and strong and game and fit. But I just think ability-wise, he's limited. And it's not saying that he's not a good fighter, because he is a good fighter, but he's just not an elite fighter. And I think if I was ranking him, I would slot him in under the Durrells, the Boutés, the Badou Jacks. I'd slot him just under that little like clique of fighters there.
Kind of along the lines of like a Porky Medina, that kind of level, or better than that?
He's better than Medina. Yeah. See you later, chunk. Later. Yeah, he beat Medina. He's better than Medina, but he wouldn't beat Badou Jack. Durrell at the time that James boxed him, he wouldn't have beat him then. He wouldn't have beat Bouté like in Canada. He's just not big enough. And but from a mind point of view and belief in himself, like you won't find anyone with belief in himself like Chris Eubank Jr.
You mentioned the size. How much of a difference do you think that's going to be on the night? I mean, James is a career super middleweight. Chris Eubank Jr., I think even now still admits the fact that he could box at 160 if he had to. How much of an issue do you think that's going to be for Eubank Jr. on the night? Is size one of the factors that you're not relying on, but one of the factors that you're kind of factoring in?
Do you know what? It's not going to be an advantage to him. I don't know whether he thinks that James is going to be heavy and he's going to start to blow, but if anything, that's a big disadvantage to Eubank Jr. Like, especially as the fight goes on. It's all right early, like even when boys come in sparring, like you see it if one's like a middleweight and one's a super middleweight. First 4 to 6 rounds, it's okay, But then after that, when it starts going to like 8, 9, 10, then the difference starts coming in. That extra half a stone, 10 pound, like the weight of the shots, the inside work, the pulling, the pushing. obviously it's much harder for the person who's lighter. And in boxing, there is weight divisions for a reason, and I think it will play a factor in the fight. Yeah, I do.
What kind of sparring have you got for James in preparation for this? I know you've got somebody who I know very well, Chris Kongo, in the camp, who's moved around with James, should we say, in the build-up to this fight. Have you gone for the smaller guys, the speedier guys, the high work rate guys in preparation for Eubank Jr.?
A mixture of everyone. We've had a few boys in there that are good punchers. I don't even know if I'm allowed to say any names, so I won't just in case I get in trouble for it. But yeah, like some boys obviously that are lighter, faster, fast hands, fast feet. And some people that have actually sparred with Eubank Jr in the past. And again, I won't name no names, but I'm sure like if they sat here and spoke to you about it, they could probably give you a better view on what they think is going to happen in the fight. But listen, sparring and fighting's fighting. But all I can say is he's looked really good in sparring, and he's ready. He's ready for the 23rd of Feb.
Talk to me about the decision. I know, well, assuming it wasn't your decision, but the decision for James to vacate his title. Why did he vacate his title? I mean, he had it. He was first. I believe he was the first Olympic gold medalist to become world champion as a professional from the UK. Lost his title, won it back, and then vacated it again. Why was that?
So he was just weighing it all up, and he's thinking, listen, I've had a good career, I've had a long, hard career. Do I want to fight my mandatory challenger for X, or do I want to fight Chris Eubank Jr for Y, which weren't even compared about. It's like saying to a cab driver, do you want to do the same job? You've got to drive just as far, you've got to work just as hard, but you're going to get like a fiver, or do you want to do exactly the same job and get 30 quid for it? Like it's just a no-brainer. And then people go, why does he give his belt up? But then when you sit down and explain it to them like that in terms of what they would do for a living, sorry Rob, they go, oh right, yeah, it's a no-brainer. So it was a pure business decision for James, and yeah, I think it's a massive fight, it's a big fight, and it's a fight that the British public want to see. So yeah, you give the fight to the fans.
With that being said, going on from here, would this be potentially James's last fight, win or lose? Now the Groves fight's not there. That's another potentially big fight. That's not going to happen. Is it only the big money fights from now on in? If he, as I say, if he wins this fight, could he still potentially retire?
Well, James is a buzz fighter. What Eddie Hearn's always called him, a buzz fighter, and I'd agree with that statement. James is the sort of fighter, or he's the sort of person that in life, whether it's boxing, whether it's just, I don't know, an everyday thing that he's doing, if he's not motivated to do something, he won't do it. Say he goes and beats Eubank Jr. like in a wicked display in 2 weeks' time, and people were talking about this fight, that fight, this fight, that fight. If financially it doesn't tick all his boxes, he won't fight. It's as simple as that. He spoke about it, and he only wants the big fights now. So, in answer to the question, this might be the last time you see James DeGale box.
Okay, just before we go, I've mentioned his name already in this interview. Chris Kongo, another one of your fighters, is going to be boxing on the undercard. Right. How's Chris looking?
Slick, too slick, just like his name. He's looking really good, super sharp. He's a proper professional, does everything right, eats right, sleeps right, trains right, and yeah, I'm looking forward to him boxing on the bill. We've got an opponent, but again, I won't say too much, but people will know him, and yeah, again, I don't want to get in trouble for announcing something before it's supposed to, but yeah, just keep an eye out for it, and I'm sure people will be interested in watching the fight.
Sorry, very unprofessional of me there. Yeah, how quickly are you looking to move Chris Kongo? I mean, he's spoken about Johnny Garton, British champion, he's spoken about Frankie Gavin as well. What's kind of the plan for him in 2019? He's somebody who's been looking for a big fight for as long as I've known him.
That's exactly right. He wants them big fights, so he's hovering now. But I said to him, listen, don't get frustrated. Just keep knocking on the door, because eventually someone has to open the door. And when the door comes open, Chris Kongo's coming in. So that's a bit of a cheesy way of putting it, but yeah, basically he's ready to step up into them fights now, domestic titles and stuff. And he's going to be a nightmare for them boys at welterweight, mate. He's 6'1", 6'2". He's massive, super fast, like hard puncher, slick. He's got all the moves, good footwork, good mover, does the rounds well. He's going to be a nightmare to beat.
Okay, well, just before I let you go, Give us a prediction. No, your phone's going off. Chris Kongo. His ears are burning.
I'll ring you after, Chris.
Give me a prediction for February the 23rd. James DeGale faces Chris Eubank Jr.
I'm going to say James DeGale puts on a boxing clinic and wins convincingly on points.
Okay, well, Jimmy Mack Jr., always a pleasure to sit down with you and speak. Thanks very much for speaking to Boxing Social. I will see you back here on Wednesday.
You will do. Top man, Rob.
Nice one. That was great.